Hey there Wargamers, thanks for tuning in for this week's Tactical Tuesday video. This video is going to be talking about the Riptide, its pros and cons, how I like to use it, and why you might want to add one to your Tau army. Additionally, if you're a non-Tau player, you might be able to use some of these tips to figure out how to combat one. The primary benefit for running a Riptide in a Tau army cannot be surmised in one statement. The reason for this is that it has several key factors that make it an awesome selection for the army. The first two major factors would be its toughness value and its wound value. The Riptide has a toughness value of 6 and 5 wounds. This makes him very capable of taking up a lot of shots and being very tanky. If you compare him to something like a Space Marine Dreadnought, the survivability factor on any monstrous creature, for the most part, is much higher. The Riptide is no exception. In addition to having an awesome wound value and toughness value, the Riptide sports a 2-up armor save, and he has the ability to access a plethora of items and upgrades. The Riptide comes stock with a piece of gear called a Nova Reactor. Essentially what this allows you to do is once per turn roll a d6, and on a 3 or better, you're allowed to choose from one of 4 other actions. The first action that this allows you to use is Nova Shield, which essentially increases your invulnerability save from a 5+, which the Riptide has standard, to a 3+. The second ability that this allows you to use is called Boost. Now this makes it to where your thrust move during the assault phase is 4d6 instead of 2d6. That's pretty useful, but currently Nova Shield's probably your best bet. The third skill is Ripple Fire. What this allows you to do is to fire all your twin-linked weapons that the Riptide has twice in one turn. The second shot doesn't count as firing an additional weapon, so it doesn't impede you from firing your normal allotment. The fourth and final skill that you could use is Nova Charge. This essentially boosts whatever primary weapon that you have equipped on your Riptide, which might be the Heavy Burst Cannon or the Ion Accelerator. Of the 4 of these, I would have to say my honest suggestion is the Nova Shield is your best bet most of the time, and any other time you may use Nova Charge, maybe. My biggest issue with Nova Reactor, and something to keep in mind when you're running your Riptides, is that if you opt to use this and you roll a 1 or a 2, you wound yourself and you don't get any saves. The key here though is that unless the rules have changed, Feel No Pain is not a save. It's a dice roll that you make after you have taken an unsaved wound. So that's why, in my opinion, the Riptide goes really well with stimulant injectors. Not only does the stimulant injectors help offset the risk of Nova Reactor, it also makes him a much more tankier and survivable unit. Along with the Nova Reactor, the Riptide has access to 2 primary weapons that you would choose from to equip him with. The first one is a Heavy Burst Cannon. This weapon has 2 firing modes. The first one is Standard, range 36, strength 6, AP 4, heavy 8. The second option is Nova Charge, and this is the option you get from using your Nova Reactor and passing the roll, and which allows you to use this mode. This particular mode also has a range of 36, it's also strength 6, and it's also AP 4. The difference is, where the Standard mode allows 8 shots, this one allows 12. The caveat to that, however, is it also provides the Gets Hot special rule and rending. The problem I have with this firing mode is twofold. First, you have to pass your d6 roll to activate it. Second, you've got 12 shots, and any ones you roll could possibly wound you, which seems very, very risky. The overall issue with that as well is that the strength and AP of the gun is not much better than the standard weapons that you find in the Tau army. So what is your actual purpose for using the Heavy Burst Cannon for in the first place? Is it for anti-infantry? If it's for anti-infantry, take a look at what your army's packing, because you may be overlapping and you may be wasting what the Riptide's actually useful for. The one use for the Heavy Burst Cannon that I can think of for the Riptide is if you want to make the Riptide an almost dedicated anti-air unit. If you purchase the Early Warning Override system for him, you're effectively giving him the Interceptor special rule. On top of that, you could give him Velocity Tracker, which allows him to choose if he has Skyfire for the turn. So if you Nova Charge your Heavy Burst Cannon in conjunction with Velocity Tracker, you would be able to effectively be like an anti-air cannon. The other benefit of running the early warning override system in conjunction with those is when a flyer enters the table, your Riptide might be able to fire at that flyer and shoot it down before it actually gets to attack. It's worth noting, however, that the Riptide only has access to 2 support systems. So if you use those support systems on the velocity tracker and early warning override system, you do not get to purchase the stimulant injectors, which we mentioned previously provide feel no pain. That makes it much more likely that you're going to hurt yourself in the event you do choose to use the Nova Charge for your weapon. The second weapon option that the Riptide has to choose from for its primary weapon is the Ion Accelerator, and this is my preferred weapon. It has 3 firing modes: Standard, Overcharge, and Nova Charge. The first firing option, Standard, has range 72, it's strength 7, it's AP 2 shot, and it's heavy 3. This is really great. It's AP 2, so it can kill Terminators or any other unit with a 2-up armor save, and its strength's high enough that it can take out light vehicles, and it's also a threat to other monstrous creatures. All in all, a great firing mode. The second firing mode that it sports is Overcharge. It is range 72, but in this firing mode, it's strength 8 now instead of 7 and AP 2. The difference here is that rather than having 3 shots, it's now heavy 1, gets hot, large blast. The gets hot roll is risky, so there's a 1 in 6 chance that this fails to fire. But the fact that you have something that goes from 3 shots to a large blast and has +1 strength gives you some much needed versatility. In conjunction with Pathfinders, which ideally you're running as a Tau player, you can use this large blast to get units that are dug into cover, using those marker lights to take the cover save away, or you can try and take out light vehicles or other monstrous creatures. Finally, the third firing mode is Nova Charge. This one is resolved at range 72, strength 9, AP 2. The difference between Nova Charge and Overcharge, however, is it is now resolved as Ordnance 1, gets hot, large blast, Nova Charge. This firing mode is generally reserved for taking out vehicles. Ordnance 1 allows you to roll 2 dice for armor penetration, and you choose the higher. The catch here, however, is that to fire in this mode, you have to activate your Nova Reactor, which is on a 3 or better. On a 1 or 2, you hurt yourself. Then you have to take a gets hot roll, and on a 1, you hurt yourself and it fails to fire. Then you get to fire and hope that it hits. I don't like those odds. You could potentially hurt yourself trying to activate it, you could hurt yourself trying to shoot it, and then you could outright miss. My favorite firing mode is just a standard Overcharge. Granted, this one does support the gets hot rule as well, but that's just one less thing that you have to worry about failing, not having to roll that Nova Charge. However, caveat to that is, though, that you do have that option for the strength 9 AP 2 shot in your back pocket should you need it. So how do I build my Riptides when I play with them? I currently only own one. The reason I own one is that I feel like fielding more than one of them becomes a hassle for your opponent depending on what they're playing. They can be really difficult to take out, so with my Tau I tried to kind of run like a Highlander list where I had a little bit of everything but not a spam of any one thing, as to be more fun for my opponents. Anyways, back on topic here. When I build my Riptides, I generally go with the Ion Accelerator, and the reason I go with that is for the versatility. As I stated previously, it has several firing modes, all of which are useful. The second weapon system that I usually take on my Riptides is a Smart Missile system. It's range 30, strength 5, AP 5, ignores line of sight, and ignores cover. This is the best option in my opinion because the Fusion Blaster and the Plasma Rifle both have shorter ranges than 30. You don't really want to get your Riptide up close, and I'll talk about that more in depth in just a moment. The first actual support system I usually go straight for the Riptide is stimulant injectors. As mentioned previously in this video, this unlocks Feel No Pain for the Riptide. In conjunction with all the other gear that the Riptide's sporting, and his toughness 6 and 5 wounds, Feel No Pain just seems to make sense, not even considering the fact that it helps with his Nova Charge as well. That's also a key benefit. For my second support system, if I take one, which is rare, I usually take Early Warning Override System. Having that option to fire an interceptor shot into, let's say, a drop pod full of Space Marines when they land is crucial. It's very effective to be able to lob a Strength 8 AP2 blast into a unit that just landed near you. The caveat to this is, however, the Riptide could serve as an AA unit, and if I take the early warning override system in conjunction with the stimulant injectors, I can't make him an AA unit. So the thing you should take away from this discussion here is, how do you want to build your Riptide and what is his role? My role for a Riptide is high strength and low AP. He's not designed to be anti-air, so it's not that big of a deal for me. So now that we've discussed builds for the Riptide, let's talk tactics. The first thing I would suggest is utilizing your Pathfinders. If you haven't already, check out my video on the Pathfinders and why I think that unit is so crucial for the Tau. For the Riptide, its main failing point is its low ballistic skill, which 3 is not terrible, but if you're running with a heavy burst cannon, you have a lot of chances to fail. You don't want to miss. If you're really trying to get that strength 8 AP2 blast from the ion accelerator on point, you don't want to miss. Use your Pathfinders to enhance your ballistic skill so that you're hitting with as many of your shots as possible. In addition to that, you can use your Pathfinders to A, give you the ballistic skill we mentioned, and B, strip the cover save off of the unit you're firing at. The cover portion's not as beneficial for the heavy burst cannon variant because the burst cannon variant's AP is not extremely low, but for the ion accelerator, this is brutal. Firing a strength 8 AP2 template into a unit in cover and having stripped their cover away is extremely effective. You pretty much delete the unit off the table. The second tactic for the Riptide, and this is the crucial point here, is deployment. This is why I also like the ion accelerator. It has range 72, whereas the heavy burst cannon has 36. This allows you to have more versatility in where you deploy yourself and helps you stay alive. Try to use line of sight blocking terrain or cover to your advantage. Anything to help keep the Riptide alive is useful for you, especially because your opponent's probably going to fall into one of two categories. Either A, they're going to have a hard counter for the Riptide, they're going to try and take him out, or B, they're going to ignore him. Most likely they're going to try and shoot at him and get him off the table, so you want to make him as hard to dig out as possible and maximize the amount of time it takes for your opponent to get rid of him so that the rest of your army is doing their job. There are two devastatingly bad things that can happen for a Riptide. The first one of them, which is the same issue that most of the Tau have in general, is being locked in combat with a dedicated melee unit. Heck, for that matter, he could be locked in combat with 10 tactical marines who aren't particularly amazing in melee, and he could still be there for most of the game. This is really bad. You don't want to get up close with your Riptide, you want to stay as far away as possible. If your opponent has the opportunity to charge him, they most likely will, even if they know that their unit's going to be locked in combat for the rest of the game because they can't take him out fast enough. It may be worth it for them to charge in a unit to lock up the Riptide to stop him from shooting for the rest of the game, if they can do so. Keep that in mind when you're trying to determine where you want to deploy and move. It's also good to keep that in mind when you're building your Riptide with your particular gear upgrades, because you don't want to get close if you can avoid it. The second primary issue that a Riptide can face, which is really brutal, probably more so brutal than melee because getting him in an assault can be tricky, is units with some type of poison weapons. When I have to face a Riptide, if I have it at my disposal, I like to use my Stern Guard veterans. They have a particular round that wounds on a 2+. Now yes, the Riptide does have a 2-up armor save, but if you make someone roll a handful of dice, they're going to roll 1s. This is also why Feel No Pain is so great on him. But if you're going up against Space Marines with Stern Guards, Space Marines with Centurions using Grav Cannons, or going up against maybe Dark Eldar with a lot of poison, Riptides are going to have issues. And in addition to the Riptide having issues, that's pretty much the failing point of most monstrous creatures. But don't be discouraged, because any unit who's firing at your Riptide is a unit not firing at your Fire Warriors, whether they're Breachers or Strikers, or your other suits, or the rest of your army. So he may go down, but what is it making your opponent use to take him out? When he's taking shots, make sure the rest of your army is capitalizing. I hope you guys found this discussion of the Riptide particularly useful. If you enjoyed this video, please also subscribe. If you haven't already, please also give us a like on Facebook. This will allow you to stay up to date with all of our future posts, promotions, and commission projects. Additionally, I'd like to hear from you guys. If you used any of these tactics or found something particularly useful in this video, please sound off below. Let's have a discussion. Finally, if you liked any of the miniatures in this video and you'd like to have me paint something for you, please take a moment to send us a quote request. I'd love to work on some of your models. Thanks again for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, happy wargaming.